Pivoting for a forehand from the backhand corner is outdated. Nobody does it anymore, especially in topspin rallies. You barely have time for a backhand, let alone a pivot. Don't be unrealistic. Alright, today we're going to talk about table tennis footwork. Actually, the footwork in table tennis isn't that demanding. The real issue is often a reluctance to move. The area you need to cover is small. It doesn't require lunging from one extreme corner to the other. I have never taught anyone to lunge wildly across the court. But even with long pips, you must use your feet. You need to move for blocks from backhand to forehand, get out of the way for middle balls, and step in for short balls. You can't avoid it. Even if you switch to long pips, you have to move your feet. Moreover, returns from long pips are slow. As your level improves, your opponent will use wider angles, which actually demands even better footwork than inverted rubber. This is because your shots are always defensive, so your opponent is constantly attacking you and increasing the quality of their shots. It's not like us inverted players, we add a little speed and we can seize the opportunity on the next ball. So, footwork is something no player can bypass. The saying, 70% feet, 30% hands, is absolutely true. For amateur players who really want to improve, I believe serve and receive are the most important aspects. The next level of importance is generating friction and having proper footwork. Other things, like your stroke mechanics, can be considered later. The appropriate footwork for older players is different from what's suitable for younger players. My coaching is designed for the average amateur, so even older players can learn to apply these footwork techniques. Let's start with the first technique, half-table footwork. First, before we learn footwork, we must master how to recover to the ready position. So how do we recover? In a fixed-point drill, you need to perform an in-place recovery. This means you return to your ready position immediately after hitting the ball. Don't wait to see the return. In a fixed-point drill, one repetition is hit, then recover. You should not wait for the ball to come back before you start recovering. That will make you too slow. Because the pace is fastest in a fixed-point drill, you must actively recover your position. Now, for a two-point drill, what should you watch for? After your shot, do not recover in place before moving. If you recover first, you'll be too late to move. This applies to all two-point drills, whether it's backhand forehand or two spots on the forehand side. After you hit the ball, your hand recovery must happen simultaneously with your foot movement. The same applies to looping, recover as you move your feet. Watch my rhythm in the fixed-point drill. I am actively recovering after every shot. However, a two-point drill is different. After the shot, keep your racket up, and then, as your feet move, bring your hand back into the ready position for the stroke. Here is where the problem lies for many players. You drop your hand after every shot, which prevents you from moving for the next one. Why do amateurs struggle with rallies? Because they drop their hand after each shot, they can't move, and they lose the rhythm. Don't recover your arm first and then move your feet. This will mess up your coordination, and you won't be able to hit the third ball. For every shot, finish your stroke, keep your racket up to see where the ball is going. And then, as you move your feet, bring your racket down into position to hit. The correct way is not to recover and then move. If you recover your arm first after a shot, your feet will be late, and you'll just be a spectator for the third ball. Your feet are stuck because of incorrect arm recovery. For half-table balls, how should our feet move? You should use a side shuffle. Why do we emphasize weight transfer? After a forehand shot, your weight is on your right leg. As you transfer it to the left leg, your right leg is freed up to start moving. After moving, plant your right foot, and as you hit and transfer weight to the left, the right leg is ready to move again. It's a continuous cycle. This footwork is about constantly using both feet to find the optimal contact point. If you don't transfer your weight, you'll end up hopping up and down, which is the slowest way to move. Therefore, our primary half-table footwork is the side shuffle. Amateurs make two common mistakes. One is recovery, and the second is moving with only one foot, like moving the left leg to make space for the right. So, the correct movement is always a small side shuffle. A side shuffle means both feet move together after the shot to create space for your body. This is how a side shuffle works. For half-table play, you should not use a single step. When moving, remember that your feet should glide close to the ground, not bounce up and down. Whether moving side to side or stepping in, your feet should stay low. Any vertical movement will compromise your balance upon landing. No matter how fast the rally, your body and feet must support continuous attacks, which always involves weight transfer, whether big or small. As you move, remember that by the time your feet land, your body's weight should already be loaded for the next shot. When moving from your forehand to a forehand from the backhand corner, the pivot, use weight transfer to stay planted and balanced. Let's practice a sequence. Play one ball from the middle. For the backhand shot, stay planted and hit. Then make room for a forehand from the middle. Next, side shuffle to the forehand corner and back to the middle. If you practice drills like this, how can you not improve? Our principle is, if you don't have to move your feet, don't. From the middle to the backhand, you don't need to move your feet. Just create space with your body, and then side shuffle to the forehand. After the middle shot, side shuffle back to the backhand, clear your body, and then move to the forehand. Pivoting for a forehand from the backhand corner is outdated. Nobody does it anymore, especially in topspin rallies. You barely have time for a backhand, let alone a pivot. Don't be unrealistic. What I'm teaching now is just moving one step to each side, and many players already say they can't keep up. So forget about complex steps. Be realistic, don't move if you don't have to, and when you do, make small adjustments. The modern men's game is all about backhand to backhand rallies. Who pivots anymore? The moment you pivot, you lose speed, and the opponent will jam your forehand. To pivot and then get into a counter-looping rally takes years of practice. Pros who've been doing it for 20 years still make mistakes, let alone us. Their 20 years of training is like 100 years for us. So, from middle to backhand and back again, you don't need to move your feet. In topspin rallies, just shift your weight to make space and use a side shuffle to cover your forehand. That's your middle game footwork. Another footwork drill is the side-to-side, one-to-one movement. Kids must use the side shuffle here. But for adults, a side shuffle can lead to poor coordination. This brings us to the footwork for moving from backhand to forehand. It's not that the side shuffle is bad, but for adults, especially men, it can cause a problem. Here's my advice. All adults should actually use a single step to move from the backhand to the forehand side. The size of the step is adjustable. For small movements, the left foot stays put. For larger movements, the left foot follows. In my experience, the single step is more precise for finding your position. With a side shuffle, it's easy to overrun the ball, making contact in front of you instead of beside you. The single step avoids this. Watch me use the single step. I can position myself very precisely, and once I'm there, I'm ready to hit a power loop. A problem I have with the side shuffle is that I often run past the ball. Because both feet are moving, when the left foot moves sideways, the right foot has to cover a larger distance, making it harder to be precise. When should you use a side shuffle? Let's say the opponent drops a short ball to my forehand, and I miss my first loop attempt. In that situation, I become alert and will use a side shuffle or shuffle step to reach the next ball. But normally, I use the single step for everything. This includes the one backhand, one forehand pattern in topspin rallies. The single step is ideal for amateurs. Of course, we wouldn't teach this to kids. They must use the side shuffle because of their height. Their two steps equal an adult's one single step. But I believe the single step is better for amateurs moving around the table. especially from backhand to forehand, as it helps find the contact point better. Now, let's talk about the ball right in the middle of the table. Do you use your forehand or backhand? This is a major challenge for amateurs, especially a backspin ball to the middle. It feels awkward, you can't get out of the way, and you can't loop it. For a middle ball, let's first talk about using your backhand. Listen carefully, because you see this backspin ball a lot in matches. If you just slide sideways to loop it, your backhand is very likely to hit the net. So what's the solution? You must step forward and into the ball, and loop it cross-court. Aim for this cross-court angle. That's how you can properly engage your power. The first issue is that when the opponent pushes to your middle, that spot is naturally difficult to generate power from. If you only move sideways, you'll feel like you can't connect with the ball because it's short, has heavy spin, and feels very heavy. So you absolutely must step forward to meet the ball and generate force. That's step 1. Step 2, why do I loop this ball cross-court to their forehand, instead of down the line to their backhand? One reason is that your opponent is likely positioned on their backhand side. If you loop to their backhand, they can just block you wide to either corner. Because your feet have moved forward, even a pro would struggle to recover from their block. That's the first reason. The second is, if I step in and try to loop down the line, I'm more likely to miss and hit the net if the opponent's push has a lot of spin. However, by going cross-court to their forehand, I can execute a full stroke. Looping cross-court gives you a longer trajectory and more margin for error. And secondly, it allows you to complete your full motion, which naturally increases your consistency. So, every time my opponent gives me a middle ball, I loop to their forehand. This allows me to fully extend my stroke, create a higher arcing shot, and pull my opponent out of position. I believe this is one of the best tactical choices. If you insist on looping to their backhand, the trajectory is too short. From that position, your instinct will be to cut your swing short, making you vulnerable to the spin. When the opponent plays to the middle, my footwork is to step forward. Don't be afraid of being jammed. Even if they push hard, your right foot should move forward to meet the ball at the optimal contact point. Don't step sideways, you won't generate any power. You must step in like this, it's the same footwork as a backhand flick. Your right foot must step forward. This is critical. Now for the forehand side. For a ball to the middle, whether it's backspin or topspin, I don't recommend being indecisive, switching between forehand and backhand. If you decide to use your backhand, commit to it. Only if you're making too many errors should you consider using your forehand. Switching back and forth will just disrupt your own rhythm and make things awkward for yourself. In topspin rallies, I recommend using your backhand more often for middle balls. Because in a topspin rally, whenever the ball comes to my middle, I will attack their forehand. From this middle position, I can hit a much wider angle to their forehand. I can aim for the far sideline. If you must use your forehand from the middle, never play it cross-court to their forehand. If your opponent can pin you in the middle, you can be sure they are waiting for that shot. So whenever the ball comes to my middle, I use my forehand to attack their backhand corner. This usually catches them off balance. Plus, attacking their backhand from the middle gives me a natural advantage. I can create a very wide angle. If you go cross-court and they block your forehand, you will almost never recover in time. That's because the footwork from the middle to the wide forehand is the most difficult movement. If you get a chance, watch an Olympic final. Pay attention to the strategic genius of shot placement. Think about where you are standing, what shot gives you the biggest advantage and your opponent the biggest disadvantage, and which shot is the easiest for you to execute. Only when you feel like you have a 90% chance of losing should you go for broke. Don't just start the match by trying to hit winners. You might succeed in the first game, but by the third, you'll be out of ideas, and by the fifth, you won't be able to land a single loop. We have to be realistic about our age and physical condition. Why do I teach you to loop with heavy spin? Because I can hit 100 of those without losing my form. But if I try to hit 10 power loops, my technique easily breaks down. Try it in practice, see if your form breaks down after 10 power loops versus 10 heavy spin loops. Nobody is immune to spin, and pips out players fear it even more. In amateur tournaments, we face far more players using pips out rubber than in the professional circuit. Ask any pips player what they fear. They fear pace, they fear flat hits, and they fear heavy topspin loops. Nobody is immune to heavy spin. What they don't fear is a half-hearted loop with a big swing that has neither speed nor spin. They love to use the pace of that shot to block you, and if they give you a high ball, you'll hit it straight into the net. What they truly fear is a high-arcing, heavy spin loop. A long pips player has no answer for that. This is how I play against long pips. I just loop it high. They have to chop block it like this, but can they control it? If they try to hit it, it'll go out. They are used to blocking low balls. If you suddenly give them a high, spinny one, just try it and see what happens. If they can somehow twiddle and counter-loop it, then we just have to applaud them. Okay, let's talk about the forehand side. There are two footwork patterns for a middle ball. First, when you're in the middle and the ball comes to a spot where you need to pivot for a forehand, both feet must move together. There's a key point to this movement. If you only move sideways, you'll never create enough space. The secret is actually using your right foot's movement to rotate your body. Look, in the ready position, your shoulders are square to the table. When the ball comes to your middle and you want to pivot, you must open your shoulders so the left is forward and the right is back. Then execute the loop. Ready position with shoulders square, then pivot, and loop. What if the ball is short? You pivot, and then step in. If the ball is long, just pivot your body, connect with the ball, and loop it directly. If the ball is short, like a half-long ball, you first pivot, then step forward with your left foot, bringing your body into the shot as you move.